All right. Hey guys, welcome back to Crypto. It is July 10th, 2025, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So in today's content, we'll go for a BTC macro update. Sorry for the delay. I was trying to basically start the streaming, but the streaming software was basically having a bug, and I needed to basically fix it, right? So hopefully most of you guys are doing great. It's been a while since we did a live stream, or since it's been a while since I did a macro update, since like the first week of January. So and BTC been moving sideways over the last 2 quarters, so we'll go for a macro update for the next 2 quarters, and we'll basically cover all the macro details we need to know going into basically the last phase of the bull market phase, right? So let me see if the sound is good before I start rumbling. Aladino, thanks a lot for tuning in. Wonder Boy, thanks a lot for tuning in. So let me know if the sound is good before I start diving into the macro basis and all that good stuff, okay? All right. Okay, sound is good. All right. So now let's take a look at BTC on a monthly basis before we talk about the low degree and all that good stuff, right? So when we take a look at BTC on a monthly basis, as we've been saying over the last few years, right? As long as we above the monthly 21 EMA, we are in a bull market. And I said it like back in early January, even though we were moving sideways, I said clearly we well above the monthly at 21 EMA, so the bull market most likely going to be ongoing for the rest of the year, regardless of the sideways-ish correction we could face over the next like a few months, right? So now we're just putting a new all-time high, and everything looks good in terms of Elliott wave. As you can see, we are potentially going for our wave number 5 right here, and this could still be a 5 wave itself, okay, depending on the structure. Or you could basically just look at it as wave 4 right here, right? And then we're going for the wave 5, potentially up to 180 and all that good stuff. Could it go over 180? Possibly, or even like over 200k and all that good stuff. But if you've been following our channel since like at least the last quarter of 2022, when we said just accumulate anywhere between 19k to 18k, or even a 15k zone, don't worry about anything below 15k, because we're looking for the 10x move over the next like 3 years. All right, that's exactly what we said. We said you don't have to basically be picking the bottom, because you could be looking for a 10x move over the next like a 36 month, right? So if you bought anywhere around like a 15k to 18k on a macro basis, you want to basically offload, not financial advice, right? You want to basically offload most of your bags around like a 150 to 180k and prepare and be ready for the next like a bear cycle, right? I know most people are talking about like a secular bull market for the next like for the next 100 years and all that good stuff, but I don't think like we will get an extended bull market, right? Like going into deep into 2026, right? So it is still possible, but just have to follow our game plan since like a 2022, right? If it goes higher, we'll just follow the trend, but the main thing is like 150 to 180k. If we get there, you just have to be extremely cautious. So now let's take a look at BTC in terms of indicators. On a monthly basis, we're looking pretty good. I remember back in I think early December, right, early January, most people were printing a divergence right here, and they said, oh, we're going to be dumping hard and going down to like a below 30k and all that good stuff. But the problem is most people only follow the monthly. They don't follow the let's say 50-day cycle. They don't follow the bi-monthly and all that good stuff. If you follow the 50-day cycle, right, in my premium group, what we said was like, yes, we're getting a correction, and we, even though we did have a divergence right there on a monthly basis, right? Divergence right there. You can see the divergence on the monthly basis, right? Leroy. Let me just remove the Elliott wave and all that good stuff. Right? Price action making higher highs, right? The first high somewhere around like a 70K back in March 2024. The second high December 2024, just about like 105. And you can see the RSI. However, if you just follow that time frame, right, and not following any other time frame, you could be price action could mislead you, okay? Because take a look at right here on the 50-day cycle, we did not get a divergence. So that's why I was saying in my premium group, yes, we are correcting, right? We're still above the monthly 21. We did get a divergence on our monthly time frame. However, on our 50-day cycle, what we're getting? We're getting a double top, double bottom. A double top, double bottom, it is most of the time, okay, a bullish pattern. Not 100%, right? I would say 80 to 85%, right? You could get a strong trend. If it is a bear market, right, we would be dropping hard. If it is a bull market, you want to basically follow the potential W pattern or even a higher high right there. Okay, so that's what we followed, over the last few months, and basically just stayed on the macro bullish uptrend regardless of the volatility and all that good stuff, right? So now let's take a look at BTC on a bi-monthly. If you take a look at it on a bi-monthly, there is no divergence, okay, in terms of the RSI, right? You can see the RSI, it is still making highs, right? The first high right there, May 2023, just about like a 30K. Second high, just about a 70K back in March 2024, and then we got another high right there. So it all depends on like how you want to look at the market. If you want to be bearish, you got pretty good argument to say, hey, we are bearish. But if you want to follow the 4-year cycle, you could also find some strong arguments to say, hey, we could be getting some crazy numbers over the next like a few weeks, month, or even I wouldn't say years, but over the next like a few months, right? Even over the next like a few years. But for this cycle, I would just say for the next like a 3 to 5 months, right? Going into late Q4 2024. Of course, okay, we're not going to get some pumps every single day. Some days we're going to get some pullback, 5, 6, 7% pullback. For alt, it could be like a 10, 15, or even 20% pullback, right? So do not expect like some pumps every single day, okay? So hopefully it makes sense. So now let's take a look at the quarterly basis, right? When we take a look at BTC on a quarterly basis, based off of the price action and what we discussed back in Q1 2025, right? What we said was like it is going to be super difficult, right, to wipe out the entire gains of 2024, the last quarter of 2024, right? Because we pumped from like 63K up to let's say we closed somewhere around like a 93K, right? In for the last quarter of 2024. So when we started to drop right here, I knew regardless of the volatility, right, the last quarter of 2024 was pretty safe in terms of maintaining the bullish structure for the following quarters, right? And that's exactly what we're saying. You can see like we just moved sideways in one quarter. Everybody started to call for 30K, 20K, 10K, 5K, and all that nonsense. And bang, right now we above like a 115. Okay, so still looking good on a macro basis. Regardless of the volatility, we could get along the way going into like a 2026, right? I don't think it'll be easy to get up to like 180 in Q3, but anything is possible for BTC. Okay, but you just have to be level-headed. If you're playing the macro, if you're playing the short-term chart, it is completely different, right? You just have to be a little bit nimble with the volatility, right? So now let's take a look at the 4-month cycle. Okay, the 4-month cycle looks super Julish. Okay, we opened the cycle in May 1st, and we will get a new cycle in, we will get a new cycle in September. Okay, so we pretty much got another what, Leroy? We got another nearly like, let's say 50 days, right, of a potential uptrend. Okay, I don't think like we will close the 4-month cycle below like a 94, right, or below like a 90k. So 115k, it is making the 4-month cycle very, very bullish, and bears most likely going to be in trouble over the next like 2 to 4 months, right? And even if we get some shakeouts, just be mindful. If we get some shakeouts along the way, potentially sometime in September, right? I know most of the time September is bearish, but the way we're going to close the 4-month cycle going to be super, super important, right? Because let's say if we close the cycle above 120, do you expect like BTC to retest like the low 90s in in September, October? No, I don't think so. Okay, if we close the cycle above 120, it means like we could get a strong bullish cycle for the last 4 months of the year, okay, or the last quarter of the year. Yeah, September could be, we could get a 5, 10, or even 15% pullback, but to wipe out the entire gains and come back down and close below 93, for the rest of the year will be nearly impossible. Okay, impossible might be a little bit exaggerated, but I would say very, very, very slim chance to come back down and close below 90k. Okay, so if you take a look at it on a quarterly basis, so it means like coming back down to these lows, if we hit like 120, 130 zone, coming back down to the cycle resistance right here will be super hard. Okay, so we just have to keep looking up until we get some bearishness on a lower degree, and then we're going to be saying, hey, it might be time to be packing our bags and let the 12-month cycle dictate what it wants to do, right? Because most of you guys by now, we've been talking about it over the last few years, right? Most of you guys by now understand like, hey, BTC goes for a 3-year bull market, 1-year bear market, 3-year bull market, 1-year bear market. So why would we would we be bearish, right, for the 3rd year, right? Hopefully it makes sense, right? So we would be expecting a bear market in 2026. Okay, that's relatively easy to understand. That's why we were bullish right here around like a 16k. If you've been following our channel, we said, okay, that's exactly what we've been looking for, right there, right here, right there, right? 2020, 2014, 2018, and basically to 2022, all of them looked the same, right? So we most likely, right, going to get another bearish candle in 2026. Okay, if not, most of 2026 could be sideways-ish, or or bearish. I would say at least sideways-ish, right? But not some bullish macro uptrend and all that good stuff, right? But we got plenty of time to talk about it once we start a new yearly cycle and all that good stuff, right? So now let's go ahead and take a look at BTC on the low degree before we talk about the BTC dominance and the potential alt season of the next like a 2 to 4 months, right? So most of you guys been following me, right, for the last few years, and I talk about a lot the 3D and the 2D time frame, right? Those two time frames, right, they're very, very important in terms of like dictating the macro uptrend, the directional uptrend, not a short-term pump like a 3 to 4%, but like, let's say, looking at like 50 to 100% move, right? If you want to catch those moves, you gotta basically follow the 3D to 2D time frame. At least, yes, you could follow the weekly, monthly, 10-year cycle, whatever for Leroy, but my point is like you're not gonna catch those moves, right, if you only follow the 4-hour chart. Okay, So now when we take a look at the 2D time frame, what we've been saying, like whenever we get a negative momentum on our 2D, okay, or 3D time frame, most of the time it means like BTC is in a correction phase and it's not going to go parabolic. A good example, okay, I'm not going to go like deep right into the analysis, or into the into these cycles, right? I'm just going to give you the most recent cycle, right? Our most recent correction phase. If you recall right there on our last update, what we said was like, as long as we maintaining a negative MACD on our 3D time frame or 2D time frame, BTC going to be what? In a correction phase. And at the same time, what we said was like, as long as gold, right, is pumping, BTC most likely going to be what? Going to be moving sideways, right? So, gold basically been moving gold been pumping, like, let's say since like a Q, since late, let's say right here, I think gold started pumping back in December, something like that, okay? And BTC started to move sideways, and gold peaked, right? In April, right? Like late April, and BTC started breakout in late April right here. Right? And we said it we talked about it in my private group. We said as long as we're getting a strong bullish momentum on gold, BTC most likely going to be moving sideways. And I'll show you a correlation and everything in a private update, right? So basically, going back to the 3D basis, is like, a negative momentum on our 3D basis, it simply means sideways-ish correction. It doesn't mean like a bear market. It doesn't mean like BTC will dump like a 50%, 80%. It only means like we're going to get a slow trend, and you have to be patient till we get a confirmation on our 3D or 2D basis before we start to say, okay, the macro trend will resume. You see what I'm saying? So if you take a look at it right here on the 2D basis, yesterday we started to pump. I mean, like, let's start it from here, okay? As soon as we got the pullback right here and printed our negative momentum right there, I started to say, okay, we're most likely going to be in a sideways-ish correction, but we just don't know what type of pattern we're going to get, because your indicator will not tell you in terms of Elliott wave what you're going to get. You could have gotten any type of pattern right here. We already printed a double top, double bottom, right? Also printed a W, and then you would be very, very bearish right here and say, okay, we're going to be coming back down to the lows, right? However, even though the pattern was a W, right, you just needed to be patient, like I did right here. Said, okay, I said in my premium group, like, hey, as long as we're getting a negative momentum, right, there is no need to be in rush, right, to be bullish in the short term, okay? Because price action could have even dropped all the way back down to the mid 90s before pushing back up, right? So, but as soon as we started to break out and the 2D MACD flipped positive, it changed the entire dynamic of the correction phase, basically. So we got a 2D bullish MACD, which is basically a very strong bullish sign, and at the same time we're getting a 3D bullish MACD right here, right? Not just because we're breaking out right here, but the indicators are following what? The trend. As you can see right here, did we break out from let's say from 101 up to 110? Yes, we did. Did we get a positive 2D MACD? No. What happened? We dumped back down. Okay, we dumped back down. So now we're pumping back up with a positive 2D MACD. It means like it is a strong bullish sign, not a fake out, right? So, and to get some sort of like a confirmation, right, my bias confirmation, if I take a look at the 3 weeks chart, you can see the 3 weeks chart is not showing any sign of bearishness. Okay, we got the sideways-ish corrections, right? And now we're getting a breakout. And the 3 weeks chart just opened yesterday. We just opened the 3 weeks chart on the 9th, July 9th. So kind of like what happened on the 50-day cycle, right there. Right here, right around like a 74, 75K, the 50-day cycle opened at just about like an 80K, let's say 80K, right? back in April 11. We opened the cycle and we pump, right? Right now we opened the cycle at 104 and now we're pumping on the 50-day cycle. Okay, so everything, okay, from like the 2D time frame to the 50-day cycle is basically showing, they all showing basically a a strong bullish momentum, right? So what are we looking for in terms of a directional trend in the short to medium term? In the short to medium term, I mean, if you Leroy, okay, and you want to be extremely bullish, right? You could just look for a one-to-one extension of our previous pump, right? If you just do this and then you do a swing low to swing high and you just extend your arrow, you get a 160k, right? However, I don't think we will get there pretty easily, because most people will be taking profits, most people will be panic selling, most people will be shorting and all that good stuff. So what we could look for is, like, instead of looking for a 100% extension, we could look for 27% extension, right, at 125, or the 40% extension around the 130, right, which basically going to give us a move, a substantial move, right, in the short to medium term, from like 110 up to 130. You're looking for a 20,000 point move or 20% move, right? 19 to 20% move. Okay, if we get an exaggerated move in the short to medium term, we could hit like 1.618 extension at 140 to 145 zone, right? But we will see over the next like a few days how the volatility going to evolve, and how bulls going to be reacting, buying all the dips, and how bears going to be panicking, cutting their losses and all that good stuff, right? Me, thanks a lot for tuning in. Aladino, thanks a lot for tuning in, man. So now, for whatever reason, if we get some sort of like a shakeouts, BTC already broke out, but before the breakout, what I was saying in my premium group was like, we just have to stay above 104 regardless of the volatility, because once we hit once we hit like 110, 111, I was started to be bullish, right, for a macro to short-term breakout. However, we just needed to stay above 104 regardless of the volatility. Let's see. Regardless of the volatility, we could have had around this area, okay, but we did not get any volatility after we took out 112, so we just hit like a 116, 117. So most likely, bulls could be very confident to carry on over the next like a few days, or over the next like a few weeks, right? So if you want to follow any indicators, would follow the 2D 21 along the way till we basically retest it or break below it before any sign of a strong downtrend, okay, or any sign of a correction phase, okay. When I say strong downtrend, I don't mean like a 50% pullback. It could be anything between 5 to a 10% correction, okay. All right, so now let's take a look at BTC on the weekly. The weekly cycle is looking super bullish. Nothing crazy on the weekly, just like the monthly, and as we discussed in terms of the indicators, most bears are started to print a divergence right here. And what we said was like, you just don't know how high your price action will go. So you don't want to basically draw a divergence too easy, okay? If you draw your divergence easily and eagerly, right, draw your divergence like that, you could easily be in trouble, okay? Because you just don't know how high price action going to go, and you just don't know when you're going to get your next bearish crossover, right? So no bearish crossover on our 3D, right? We just flipping bullish on our 3D, right there. No bearish crossover on our 2D. We already flipped positive, and our weekly MACD, it is still positive. So I wouldn't be drawing any divergences as of now, right? You could still move the goalpost, right, just like that, and say we just hit resistance if you want to, right? And try to draw some parallel channels, whatever. But our 2D MACD is not confirming a a trend line resistance as of yet. Okay, but it is very subjective how you want to draw your trend line. You could draw it like that. Regardless how you draw it, right? We're still breaking out above it. Okay, just for the bears. Okay, so must be very, very patient before drawing any bearishness, right, in the short to medium term, right? Because BTC, remember, when it pumps, it's just gonna get the job done in like, let's say a month to two, right? So but it could move sideways for like a 2 to 4 months, right? So you just have to be patient since we just got a breakout. Okay, right. So I think that is it. We talked about all the major time frames from the 12-month all the way down to the 2D basis, right? So now let's take a look at the dominance. Okay, so now when we take a look at BTC on the monthly, right, the BTC dominance on the monthly, okay, I could easily say, hey, I don't see any sign of bearishness on the BTC dominance, and we could be going indefinitely to the upside, right? Because I don't see anything, to be honest, in terms of like a potential dump. When I take a look at it on on a monthly basis, right? So now we have to scan it on a weekly basis. If you take a look at it on a weekly basis, we're just getting a negative crossover on our MACD, right? And last time we had a negative crossover was, back in November 2024. And most of you guys remember what happened back in November 2024, right? We did get a mini alt season, and most alt really pumped. I wouldn't say really hard, but at least, like Ethereum, Solana, XRP, XLM, Algo, they did pretty well. Now we're getting another negative crossover. Could we get another mini alt season? Or are we getting ready for a macro alt season where alt going to be pumping 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 100x? Okay, I don't know. Okay, but one thing I can say in terms of the indicator or indicators is like we're getting multiple divergences, right, on our let's say almost 2 years, okay, 2 years of a negative trend. Okay, so the first rejection right here back in October 2023, second rejection October 2024, and the third rejection right there just about like April 2025. Are we going to get another rejection by October 2025? That is possible, okay, because we just talked about what? We just talked about the double top, double bottom on the 50-day cycle on BTC, if you recall, right? Let's go back to a BTC, take a look at the 50-day cycle. Okay, we just talked about what? We just talked about the double top, double bottom right there, which basically gave us the opportunity to be macro bullish on BTC. If you take a look at it in terms of the I just noticed it actually during the live stream. I didn't notice the weekly double top, double bottom right here on BTC, right? So if we just correlate it to the BTC USDT chart, we could easily say, okay, the BTC dominance might not be ready to a drop. It could give us another pump till October 2025 before basically giving us a rejection. Okay, it is just a theory. It doesn't have to happen, okay? But all I'm saying is like, don't be surprised, right, if we do not get an alt season right till October. Yes, we could get some alt pump, 200%, 300% and all that good stuff, but like going back to like a 0.786, 0.888 and all that good stuff might not be feasible right now, okay, unless we take out the weekly 220 EMA. the divergence is there, right? But can we take out the weekly 21 for the USDT dominance below like a 63 and a half? Right now we just about like a 64. Okay, if Ethereum pumps above like let's say 3200, most likely the the BTC dominance will drop below 3.4%, depending on how BTC will pump also. Okay, but I'm just putting it out there, just in case you're watching the the BTC dominance and expecting like some alt season. So understand exactly what's going on, so you will not be eagerly expecting alt season to take place right now. Okay, because we still got like a plenty of time. We got like a 3 to 4 month. In alt season you only need like a let's say 4 to 6 weeks. You don't need like 6 months of alt season. Okay, because the volatility going to be super high. The volume right now for most alt is extremely low, right? It means like we won't need like a lot. We won't need like a plenty of liquidity to basically pump alt. Probably like small liquidity will pump most of these alt. The other day I was taking a look at some of these alt on Binance, right? And the volume, like let's say Atom, right? Used to have, I was looking at Atom, the volume was like 2 million, something like that, 3 million. Okay, USDT volume. Okay, 24 hour. That's extremely low. Okay, compared to like what we used to get in 2017 and 2021, when these alt volume used to be like 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. Okay, or even like $1 billion, depending on depending on the hype and all that good stuff. Okay, so now we do have some negative momentum on the USDT dominance, but you still have to be cautious. That's a takeaway, right? Most of these alt, they at the bottom. So if you're looking to buy alt, not financial advice, buy them now. Okay, now till September, right? Just accumulate alt. Okay, and basically be patient. If your alt pump anything above like a 200%, 300%, must lock in profits into BTC, right? Because as long as alt are pumping, right, BTC most likely not gonna drop. Okay, that's what I've noticed like over the last few years. Before BTC start dropping, right, alt will drop already like 20-30%. You see what I'm saying? So as long as alt are pumping, BTC most likely going to hold strongly, right? So just have to be patient with alt and not expect them to pump like a crazily. In July, yes, you could still get like a 30, 40, 50% gains, stuff like that, but don't expect like going back to all-time high in July. Okay, if we get it, great, but we just have to be level-headed. This way we won't be surprised or be having headaches if we see some pullbacks on alt, right? So now let's take a look at the juicy stuff when it comes to the dominance. Okay, so what I'm saying on the dominance is that we got a strong negative. That's the first one actually we've seen. Okay, in terms of the divergence. No, we did have one right there. Okay, that was back in 2023. Okay, I was like April 2023 up to June 2023. We did have a divergence. Okay, but it wasn't a divergence, right, on your RSI. But this one, it is a divergence on your MACD and on your RSI. Okay, so pretty strong divergence. If we could take out, let's say, the 3D21 and come down to like a 63.3, that could be nice. Okay, that could be nice, right, for alt, at least in the short to medium term, right? So but on the macro, don't expect like don't expect much if you take a look at the monthly time frame, right? Because we still got a support at around like a 62 and all that good stuff, right? Because it's not going to give you any sign of a bearishness. It could take forever, right? Unless we get a sudden wipeout and drop all the way down to like 58, which is going to be crazily, right, bullish, right, for Ether, Doge, XRP, Solana and all that good stuff. Most of the top altcoin will benefit if the dominance drops down to a 58% or lower. Hopefully it makes sense. Okay, Hey, what's up, Quiet Cook? Thanks a lot for tuning in, man. All that good stuff. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Carboy in the house. Thanks a lot for tuning in, man. All right. So now, I think we basically covered the most important thing, BTC and the BTC dominance. The next thing to cover is the USDT dominance, right? Okay, so the USDT dominance, it is a bit tricky. On a monthly, we did get a double top, double bottom, right? So kind of give us some hard time right there, right, in June, right? But if you take a look at it on a weekly and lower, we getting a very strong negative sign, okay, right there, which is a very bullish sign when it comes to we're getting a negative momentum right here. So whenever you get your MACD showing something like that, right, the blue line, and your yellow line doing something like that, you know, you're most likely getting some very strong push down, okay? And that's what we're seeing right now in terms of the MACD on a weekly basis. So on the 3D, if we take a look at the 3D, we printed what, a bear flag. Now we're breaking down below it, so that's a good sign. If you notice well, back in October, November 5th, excuse me guys, November 5th 2024, what happened right here after the bear flag, we broke down. And if you guys recall what happened, you know, BTC and alt, they pump hard, okay? So that was Tuesday, November 5th, right? No, most of you guys remember that day, right? Or that date, okay? So now what we're getting, a breakdown below the bear flag, and we could be headed down to the 3.8. If you recall back then, what we were saying, going down to 3.8. So now we could be headed back down to 3.8, right? So, and it means like BTC most likely going to dominate the trend as of now until we see something different, all right? But most likely alt will benefit off of the drop also, right? Because, you know, when BTC was dropping from this point back in, you know, from like, let's say when the USDT dominance was dropping from 4.8 back in November, BTC was around like a 65k, right? 70k zone. Now BTC is around like 115k, and the dominance, it is still around like a 4.8, right? The USDT dominance. So what does it mean? Okay, it means like the BTC dominance is extremely higher than what it is right now, okay? And we could basically you know, see a nice 15% move on the USDT dominance, which basically means like you know, BTC could move at least to the upside 15%, bare minimum, okay? All right. So the takeaway for the USDT dominance is like, can we retest 3.8? And after that, we could be looking for the 2.5. But that's going to be down the road, potentially in Q4 2025. But in a short to medium term, let's just take care of business. Try to get back down to a 3.8. Okay. Even if we retest it, move sideways, you know, it is still good because we already gotten like, let's say 15% move, 20% move, okay? And retesting the December 2024 lows at 3.8, okay? Rizman, Saeed, thanks a lot for tuning in, man. Now let's take a look at the gold BTC ratio, or the BTC gold ratio. If you want to take a look at it in terms of BTC gold ratio, you know, it is still printing, let's see, another 15% move, just like the USDT dominance. So if the BTC gold ratio going to drop 15%, it simply means BTC will outperform gold by 15%, and gold most likely going to be moving sideways while BTC is pumping. We talked about it a long time ago. BTC and gold most of the time they don't move together, they alternate. Okay, when BTC is pumping, gold is moving sideways. When BTC is moving sideways, gold is pumping. Okay, so if you want to take a look at it in terms of the other way, gold BTC ratio, right? It is still not yet back to the 2024 highs around 40. Okay, so it is another, let's say 16 to 17% pump. So it doesn't matter how you look at it, the 15 to 18% pump, whether you want to look at it versus gold, whether you want to look at it in terms of the USDT dominance, the 15% pump is still showing from current level. Okay, I don't know how we're going to get it, right? I don't know if it is going to be a slow move or if it is just going to be a parabolic move in like a day or two. I don't know, but regardless of how we want to look at it, the 15 to 20% move, it is still there. Okay, we just have to stay above the 2D21 over the next like a few days or few weeks. Okay, all right, so it is already 40 minutes. All right, so I think I covered everything we need to know for the next like let's say 4 to 6 months. If you just you can always go back and watch the video. We don't need to do like a live stream every day, otherwise we're going to be repeating ourselves and talking about the same thing. If you're just playing the macro, as I said at the beginning of the video, you just have to be patient. Everything on the macro basis is looking super bullish. The only bearish thing we could point out in terms of the volume is like we're getting a declining volume and we're getting higher prices, which is a bearish sign, right? But it is still okay in terms of the 4-year cycle, because we're nearly at the end of the the 4-year cycle. So it is okay to get it late in the cycle, right? And then later on we could get higher volume to get the blow off top. Okay, but it is there. It is up to you to make a decision of how you want to play it. Even though it is there, everything else is showing a macro bullish. So I would just stay with the macro uptrend for the next like a 3 to 6 months, until we get at least another 2D 3D negative momentum, or another weekly bearish MACD, price action below the weekly 21 EMA, stuff like that, and then you're going to start to be panicking and all that, right? But other than that, I don't see anything crazy in the short to medium term. Like if you're trading the 4-hour chart, the 1-hour chart, anything can happen. Okay, anything is possible. Anything could happen, and then price could drop because of the volatility. Price could drop 3, 4, 5%, pump 3, 4, 5%. You just have to manage those volatility and have to manage your risk. But if you're just following the 4-year cycle, you just have to put it on cruise control, and let it drive itself. Okay, autopilot. Hey San, can you check Ether? So Ether, let's take a look at it on a 2D basis first. Ether is basically following BTC. Okay, got a macro parallel channel if you want to look at it this way, since the correction phase back in March 2024. So we got a channel right here. So just broke out above the channel, and at the same time taking out the 0.618. So the next level of resistance, I already discussed it in the premium group. It is going to be 3250 to 3650. Okay, if you're looking for Ether to hit like, let's say 8 to 10K, you just have to be patient. the probability it is still there. Okay, I know when we started to drop right here, most people started to call like a $300, $400, and all that good stuff, and they said like you know, Ether is done, but I don't think Ether is done yet. You know, it all depends on your time frame. Okay, you know, the you know, 8 to 10k Ether, it is still very possible, or $1 trillion Ether is very possible. As of now, I think it is around like a 300 billion, 400 billion, stuff like that. Let's double check. Let's see. So Ether, it is at, yeah, 350 billion, right? So another less than 3x, it'll take us to a 10k. If we hit 1 trillion, you know, don't be FOMOing on Ether. It is most likely going to go through a rough phase. Okay, yes, we still don't have a positive MACD, but you know, on the 3D, that's when you want to, you know, start front running the macro basis. The 3D is giving us a nice kiss. If we get, you know, if we get a strong move, right, that could basically easily send the RSI, right, on a 2D basis for a double top. Okay, right, the RSI, we could get easily this move and then another potential retest, right? But we will see how it'll play out. But just keep an eye on the 3250, 3650. I'm not saying it is a top. It will be a top, but in the short to medium term, right, that could be part of the the trend for another potential correction. I don't know how deep that correction will be, but just be patient if we hit that level. If it goes higher, great, but let's see. Hey, Quiet Cook, thanks a lot, man. What is my top for this cycle? I mean, like I said, I'm not looking for an exact top. I'm just following the 4-year cycle. But you know, anywhere between 150 to 180. If you bought around like a, you know, when we said to buy around 15k to you know, 19k, you know, 15k to 18k, anywhere around that level, you know, anywhere around like 150 to 180k could be a good exit point for you know, at least 60 to 50% of your bags, right? Okay, someone is asking for Zilliker. I'm pretty sure you're a moon boy, so I'm gonna take a look at ZIL USDT. So ZIL, it is basically printing the same exact pattern as most of these alt, right, which is a double bottom, right, from the April bottom, right, April 2025 to May 2025 top, retested it, right. We could basically get this move. My only concern is, like, you know, alt could do this, right, and still come back down and retest the lows again, right, by October, because October is a very bullish month. And we talk about what we talk about, like we just talk about like the BTC dominance. Even though it is printing some bearishness, we cannot actually trust it until it breaks what, below the weekly 220 EMA. So if the BTC dominance decides to you know, break out to the upside again, yes, alt will most likely retest their lows, okay, they you know, their yearly low again in October, right, which basically could coincide with BTC. The which basically could coincide with the BTC dominance peaking, right? And then alt could basically skyrocket. Okay, so it is just a theory. It doesn't have to happen. Okay, but you know, as of now, right, if we hit 0.015, you know, if you are buying now or already bought the dip right here, just secure some profits into BTC regardless of what the alt is going to do, right? If it pumps higher, you'll be like, okay, you know, I still got some back. If it dumps below, you know, 20%, if it dumps 25%, you'll be like, okay, we're most likely going to retest the lows. Then I'm gonna exit and wait for a retest right here by October. Okay, because it is a pattern I've seen. I think last November, that's what we had, right? And most of these alt are printing it. Okay, like if you take a look at yeah, if you take a look at Atom, right, similar pattern. If you take a look at, no, I think I'll go similar pattern, right? April, right, and then basically June lows right here. So double bottom right there. So this is basically the equation. Are they gonna break above the May highs? That's a big question. So you don't want to be buying in, you know, when we hit the May highs. Okay, so you take a look at DOT, similarly, right, a double bottom, V shape. Okay, take a look at Dodge, similarly, inverse V shape. Okay, take a look at Filecoin, Leroy, you know, double bottom. So that's a move we could get for alt, but it won't be enough to dump the BTC dominance. That's a problem. They have to take out, you know, the May highs, right there. Take a look at Ethereum Classic did not actually retest the absolute bottom, but good enough to be called a double bottom. So that's a move we could look for Ether Classic, right? And we will see. AVAX, similarly, already printed a small one right here. Now it could basically, it is making a bigger one. Okay, but we got plenty of time for alt, so no need to be in rush. Yep, another one right here, Tezos. Okay, so we'll see if we get this move right. You know, we'll see if we're going to either break out to the upside, you know, or get this move back down to retest the support zone and get the triple bottom by October, and then basically skyrocket. That's possible. Okay. All right, Rizwan, sorry. Okay, let's take a look at H bar for a quiet cook. So similarly, just the same pattern as most of these alt. I don't see anything anything crazy. Just have to take out the May highs. Okay. We got a positive 3D, so but it is still deep, you know. So must take out the May highs. Okay. So basically, what we're seeing right there, right here, right, for most of these alt, right, that's what we already printed. So now we're getting a move like that. So we don't know if this move going to be pumping or if it is going to come back down, retest the bottom, and then break out. That's what I was just trying to show you. I didn't even know like a H bar already printed this pattern. Okay, but just keep an eye on the 22 to 20, 23 cents. In the short to medium term, not a bad move, like 23% move. So, and for Zilliqa it would be a a 50% move, which is what I was just saying. Like we could get like anything like between like a 25 to 50% move on alt, but I just don't know if we're going to get like a serious like a 500% to a 1000% pump. All right, let's see. So XRP, so one chart you have to keep an eye on. It's not XRP USDT. I know you want to take a look at XRP USDT, but one chart you must pay attention to, it is XRP XRP Ether. So XRP has gone up a lot against Ether since July 2024 over the last 12 months. So pump like over 1000%. So I think over the next like a few months, it'll lose all those gains against Ether. So if you hate Ether, or you don't want to, you just want to hold XRP, it could be relegated against Ether, or downgraded, however you want to call it, over the next like a few months. Okay, since it took like over 12 months, it could take another 12 months to get the double bottom also, right? So pay attention to XRP, XRP Ether chart, right? XRP USDT. The next level of resistance for XRP USDT just about like a 4.5 to 5.5, right? So it already came back down to retest the 1.6 and all that good stuff, but yeah, it is weak, but it all depends on your what you prefer. If you prefer XRP, great, you could just hold on to it, but you got to compare it to like a BTC and Ether. You don't want to hold too much XRP, or like go all in on XRP and it doesn't perform well against Ether and BTC. It won't perform well against BTC and Ether in the bear market. So if it pumps, you just have to reduce exposure, right? Allocate some into a BTC. I wouldn't even allocate it into Ether. If the bear market going to start, allocate it into a USDT. If not, you allocate it into BTC. Even if BTC drops 50%, the next, you could DCA, because the next like a bull market, BTC will give you another basically a 5 to 7x, or even 10x, okay, depending on where we're going to be bottoming at. But it is not just time to look for the top, but it is also time to be prepared for the next like a down cycle, because it will come regardless of how juicy the market going to be over the next like a few months. We will get a bear cycle, and you got to be mentally prepared for the bear cycle. You can see this bull market has been pretty rough. It has been a pretty rough ride over the last 3 years, because only BTC been pumping. But when the bear market comes, it will be rougher, okay, because everything will be dropping, like BTC itself, okay. Alright guys, so I'm just gonna cut it short. It is almost 1 hour of live streaming. Make sure to follow me on make sure to follow me on TradingView. I do a lot of updates. I update the premium group like every single week. I actually just updated like week number 27. So every single week, for 52 weeks a year, I do an update every weekend, And I know I don't do a lot of updates on YouTube because it's too much noise on YouTube. So I just try not to follow the noise and all that good stuff, and try to focus a bit in the premium group and on myself also. But make sure to follow me on, on TradingView. I do update some. I do send some public update on TradingView. You can also follow me on Telegram, right? We got a lot of Moon Boys in there, a lot of Doom Boys, like this guy. What's the name of it? The 10K bear is still waiting for 10K. So you can basically follow me on the Telegram channel or the on TradingView, basically. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Be safe out there. If I see anything crazy, I will go for another update. Other than that, have a good rest of the second half of the year.